Hey there, and welcome to the Divorce Planner Podcast. I'm Alex Beatty. Going through a divorce can feel incredibly isolating. I've seen countless people try to navigate this journey solo, thinking they have to put on a brave face and figure it all out alone. But here's the thing, you don't have to. Today, I'm talking to Hilary Livingston Giddings and Bethany Pace from Sincerely Divorced. These two friends supported each other during their respective divorces and turned their experience into something powerful: community. We talk about why community matters during divorce, how vulnerability leads to authentic connections, and practical tips for finding your own divorce support tribe. Hilary and Bethany shared their refreshing breakdown to glow up philosophy and proved that joy and laughter are still possible during one of life's most challenging transitions. Finding the right support during divorce isn't just helpful, it's absolutely game-changing. I'm talking about the kind of support that makes you feel seen, understood, and valued. All that and laughs too. Let's dive in. Today's conversation with my guests, Hilary and Bethany, actually is so important in a way you wouldn't assume. And it's all about building community during and after divorce. The really importance of kind of surrounding yourself with people who have been there and done that. And the two of you bring such a wonderful and a different tone. And what was the catalyst for the two of you creating Sincerely Divorced?
We were colleagues about 10 years ago at a local university. Bethany was actually my supervisor. And so we worked together for about 7 or 8 years. Yeah. And then both of us ended up leaving. I ended up in Canada with my ex-husband for a job opportunity, and Bethany ended up in a different apartment on campus. And then cue the pandemic, because that was 2019, and the pandemic. And then by the end, and we remained friends even throughout, once we stopped working together, we still remained really close because we always connected and worked together and had a friendship outside of work. So our friendship deepened. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And then at the end of 2021, so a little bit of post-pandemic, Bethany was heading towards divorce. She told me the day I told her I was pregnant with our second child. And then 3 months later, I was also heading towards divorce very unexpectedly. So having her just as my friend, but then also having her as my friend during the hardest time in my life was invaluable. I don't think I would have survived. I mean, I would have survived, but not as well as I did. And I feel the same way. I planned to file, but it was still really scary. And we did not expect to be doing a team approach, but we did. And so we feel like we pioneered a new method of support in doing that. And that's meant everything because we know that divorce is so isolating. I think the thing that we often marvel at is the fact that we all know people are getting divorced, but no one is talking about it. So it feels really isolating, or it's a part of someone's past story, but they don't want to talk about it because they feel failure or they feel shameful about it, and so we're really in this team approach. Part of it is bringing divorce into the light and saying it's okay. And people will walk beside you if you talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, that's the key that unlocks everything, which is vulnerability, right? So once we kind of break through, it can feel like a prison of our own making of keeping ourselves insular or feeling like, look, the truth of the matter is there's still a lot of stigma attached to divorce. I will say that you will find that out quickly when you start sharing the news of your divorce with people. And so being able to, create a support system around you, in addition to professionals that you deal with during divorce, but friends, colleagues, it is a game changer. And the fact you created this little buddy system is so important. And now creating a platform is an extension of that kind of buddy system, which is really exciting.
And there's so much validation too, just having somebody else who can say, I understand what you're going through, because divorce really blows up your whole world. It's not just the marriage. It's everything that you can think of about your life changes. And even though it looks different for everyone, there's still a part where your hearts connect because you still know the range of emotions, I think, in a way that no one else could possibly know. Even though all of our stories are different, they're still tied together by loss and grief and sadness and disappointment and anger and anxiety. It's like that movie with the emotions.
And I would just like to add that nobody better to kind of lean on to during that time than somebody else going through it. It becomes like another anchor to have during that tough time. It's so much easier to hold space for people when you are helping shepherd them through a tough time and coming to it with information and empathy and vulnerability. And by the way, one day you're like, this is kick ass. I'm going to start over. And then the next day you're just mourning your loss. And it's just like you have to be kind to yourself and you have to understand healing is not linear. I really want to talk about the fact that you made a connection being friends through working together, right? And then life threw you both these curveballs, which connect other people when you're going through an intense time. What surprised you most about building the connection? And what advice would you give to others who might be hesitant to open up about their divorce situation or journey?
I think for us, like we just found random commonalities. Like our birthdays are within 2 weeks of each other. So like once we realized we shared an astrological sign, that was like a moment. I'll never forget one day I walked into her office and she had this planner sitting on her jazz. Yeah, like next level planners. And she like explained to me the system you can order the different covers and pages and get your name on the front of it. And I was like, oh, I love that kind of stuff. And so again, that was another connection. So I think our advice, be your authentic self. Of course, I was her supervisor. So, that already kind of sets up a power dynamic. But to the extent that I was able to sort of break through and say, well, one, I saw a lot in Hilary, a lot of potential that was not being utilized. And I wanted her to believe in herself as much as I believed in her. So that really, like, I think, dismantled the supervisor supervisee vibe, and then we were able to move forward and again have those little connections. So I think both of us would say, like, be vulnerable with people that again you feel like you have a commonality with, a couple different points, and be open and share a little bit and then go from there. Because I think maybe one of the first conversations we had was about pregnancy, because when we first started working together, she was pregnant with her son, and at that point I had already had 2 kids, because as you know, I'm 15 years older than Hilary is. So I'm a little bit ahead of on a parenting plan. But we talked about pregnancy. Again, very shared experience, but brought us closer together. So I think I would say to anybody, take those opportunities to find your people in places where you might not expect to find them. And then go from there, with sharing, because it means a lot to people to hear a person say, yeah, I'm divorced. And they're like, oh my gosh, me too. It's just an instant connection. Yeah.
It's like you're kind of dancing around each other, sizing each other up, a safe space. Yeah, really able to, be open to taking that risk. It is a new kind of risk. And also, I think when we're going through a lot of deep introspection, there's a metamorphosis happening with your own self, right? There's this opportunity to take a look at who you are now, know that person, figure out what brings you joy moving forward, so you can really put yourself in a position to move through this experience as a different version of yourself in the best sense.
Absolutely. And you get to celebrate who you're becoming together along the way.
Yeah.
So you might meet in a place that's really, a valley, right? But then the beauty of community and that authenticity that comes from relationships and seeing each other over time and talking over time is that then you start to get to celebrate what we like to call the glow up. That's why our tagline is, we're here for the breakdown and the glow up, because that's real connection.
Mm-hmm. That is real connection. We'll be back after a quick break. Feeling overwhelmed about the possibility of a divorce and not sure where to start? Book a free 15-minute strategy call with me. During our time, we'll talk about where you are in the process and what next steps could be. To schedule your call and learn more about my coaching program, head over to www.thedivorceplanner.net/coaching. Let's get back to today's episode. Your social media really emphasizes moving beyond divorce stereotypes with humor, which is so necessary. Is there a moment when the community support helped challenge those stereotypes and shift your perspectives on what life after divorce could look like?
Well, my divorce happened very quickly, right? So it wasn't my decision to divorce. So there was a lot of muck that I had to get through just in terms of accepting it. But I don't think I mean, I know at the time, and even if I had planned it more, I don't think that I could have realized how much happier I could be post divorce. Because nobody, usually when you tell people you're getting divorced or you are divorced, it still feels a little bit taboo because people are like, oh, and they don't really quite know how to respond to you. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or, oh, you know what I mean? They kind of are a little bit uncomfortable. And, if you go down in Hallmark, there's no cards for divorce, but so many people are getting divorced and you want to show them your support. So I think that as a society, it's not really something that people are comfortable talking about, even if you're not impacted directly by it. But we have found that just doing this work we're kind of like flying the plane as we're building it. So humor was one way that, the two of us as friends, would get through it. And, a lot of our reels, we kind of really lean into that humor, and it's fun because we get to bounce ideas off of each other. And so I think that, and one of our most popular reels is the one it's from Wedding Crashers. It was a clip from the movie, and it was like, it turns out my life didn't suck. I just had to get divorced. And like, that's resonated with a lot of people. And it resonates with me because and to go back to your original question, like I had no idea that my life had the possibility to have as much happiness and as much connection, even though I'm divorced. It just opened a whole new world. And I think that a lot of people feel that way, but it's not something that people are comfortable or are ready to talk about because of the negativity.
Hilary, I want to really thank you for sharing your own personal divorce story and being able to say that like it wasn't your initiating or your idea to have, and for us to be able to share our own experiences in that way, normalize the different reasons is so important. So thank you so much for being so raw and kind of open and vulnerable during this conversation, because I know somebody else out there, I totally relate to that version too. Sometimes it's not your choice. And divorce is really, it becomes, look, there's a lot. It's not like your life stops, right? So, you've got you've got older kids, you're juggling jobs, or maybe you're with the kids full time. Your life doesn't stop because you're getting a divorce. And yet a divorce is like two full-time jobs. If you don't have a community, if you don't have that support, you're not going to be able to navigate this as well as possible. And to be able to do that, you have to let go of a lot of, shame or perceived shame and kind of put yourself out there. I will say that, like we talked on earlier, isolation is a big thing, right? And isolation and perspective. So, what I really love about the tone of your brand and kind of the tenor of the work that you're putting out there is you make a choice how you are going to get through the day. What are some of your early small steps in reaching out to others? And how did those initial connections grow into like a meaningful support system and what you're building now with Sincerely Divorced?
Yeah. So our first interactions, and this is like has become like an internal hashtag between us, is hashtag just one, because our first event was like an online getting through the holidays divorced webinar. And we were at my kitchen table. We were so prepared. We had all these ground rules for talking. And it was maybe like 2 weeks after we said we should have a divorce support group. And one person came, and that one person like thought that there would be like 10 other people there and that she could just be off camera. Right. But there was no opportunity for that. So that has become one of our dearest friends. Shout out Morgan. And then we did a coffee meetup at a local smoothie place the following week. And we had just one person there too. That's Kim. And that's really kind of like the initial sort of foundation of it, was like, okay, well, we're going to do another coffee. Okay, we're going to do a happy hour. And then by the time we got to like April, right, because this is all happening in 1 year, but that's probably the most amazing part, that this has all happened in such a short period of time. But we just kept putting out those opportunities in very small, non-threatening ways. We're just going to be here for coffee. And then before you know it, we had 4 people and then 8 people. And then we had men show up. And then we added yoga, started doing other things. And then people in the group had ideas. Then they started getting together outside of our formal Sincerely Divorced events. And that was, I think, a real like point where we knew that this is really important work and it's touching people's hearts and changing their lives. When we see members of our support group and their kids together at a baseball game, but it really just started with coffee and a really awkward online seminar.
And I think that it is a living example of you can have an intention and then let go of your expectation and let things are going to take the path that they're going to take. And that not only speaks to the sincerely divorced and how you're building the kind of like the genesis of it, but also in your divorce journey, right? Let go of what you think this is going to look like and have intention going through it. It's a great time for deep introspection and connections. You'll be surprised at the wonderful connections you make during this time. We'll be right back after a quick break. Subscribe to the Divorce Planner's weekly newsletter and get divorce prep tips, financial planning tools, and expert insights delivered discreetly to your inbox. Sign up at www.thedivorceplanner.net. Let's get back to today's episode. I love that Sincerely Divorced, that the two of you are taking action. And I can definitely see in the not too distant future, not only is it going to be where the two of you are right now, but then there's going to be like a chapter on the East Coast, on the West Coast, in the South, you name it, because this is something that everybody goes through. And this goes back to normalizing. Sometimes relationships end, right? People lose jobs, people get sick. Some relationships end. The one constant in life that you can set your watch to is you are going to be thrown some challenges. So lean into what's going on into that. What is one thing you each wish you knew about divorce before going through it?
Whew, that's a tough one. I think for me, it's that you don't really know how you're going to be with something until you're actually in it. Because I know if they're going through my own divorce, like there's a lot of people that say, you should do this or you should do that. Or why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Like maybe a different version of me that hadn't gone through divorce or hadn't gone through something like that would be asking those same questions. But you definitely react differently when it's you that it's happening to. And I think that's one thing that's taught me. It's kind of deepened my empathy and like my understanding of other people's journeys, not just through divorce, but just in life in general. I'm like, hey, I don't know what they're dealing with. You know what I mean? There's so many factors and so many layers and so many complexities to divorce and just any kind of challenge that you truly don't know how it's going to be until you actually experience it.
Yeah. And my answer would be, I wish I had known that the kids were going to be okay, because I'm sure, like many parents, the biggest worry, and I think one of the things that keeps people in unhappy relationships the longest, is this sense of, what am I doing to my kids? What kind of damage am I doing? And I used to always joke, and I still sometimes do, like, they'll go to therapy for something because they did not come with instruction manuals. So I'm just doing my best. I'm building the plane as I fly, right? But I wished I would have known that they'll be okay, Bethany. And I did eventually get closer to that, but it was the help of a dear friend of mine in Colorado who helped me reframe, which is also a really big part of our work, is the reframing, that what your girls will see in you with the decision and the ability to change course after 22 years of marriage and to choose yourself. What I could teach them was so much bigger than the fear that they're not going to be okay. Because she said, they're going to be okay because you're their mama and you love them and you are going to do everything in your power, including paying the future therapy copays, to make sure they're okay. But when you're right in the midst of it, it's like, I'm failing. Like, this is going to be the big red F in parenting, because that was like a big part of, what kept me in place for as long as I did, or as long as I was, rather.
Thank you for sharing that. Both of you have two of the top things that I think people combat at the beginning of the journey. As a parent, I've really settled on the fact that I'm really a Sherpa. As I said, the one thing all of us can count on is that life is going to throw you curveballs. And as a parent, you are modeling behavior and you're giving your kids tools to understand how to navigate different situations. And divorce is an opportunity to model behavior. I understand that people are in extreme positions, but what doesn't change is mom and dad might not be married anymore, but we still are connected people because we know that we're still connected in some way. And then I will say, Hilary, what you're talking about is just like, it's that fear of the unknown, right? It's how am I going to handle this? Trust yourself, I would say, of course. And then be proactive. Like, don't bury your head in the sand. Just try to wake yourself up. That's what my page is all about. If anybody is listening and they want some help, taking control of what is within your control is the first anchor that you have through this experience. And then number 2, embrace uncertainty. Get comfortable with the unknown. I will say, as we're wrapping up, life is intended to happen as it does. But by putting ourselves in another's shoes, we can get a better understanding how to obtain help and to give others help that they need. And I think that's a good way to wrap this up. And that's exactly what building community is all about. And thank you for really taking the lead on doing it in such a funny way.
Thank you for reaching out to us and wanting to get to know us. And you always be special to us. So thank you, Alex.
That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you found it helpful. For more free resources, check out my blog at www.thedivorceplanner.net/blog. You'll find articles on how to emotionally and financially prepare for divorce, gain insights into the process from divorce experts, and empower yourself with tips and tools that make your divorce journey easier. And you can follow me on Instagram at the.divorce.planner, on Facebook at Divorce Prep, and on YouTube at The Divorce Planner for daily divorce prep tips and support. I'm Alex Beatty, and this has been the Divorce Planner Podcast. Until next time, remember, divorce is hard. Preparing for one doesn't have to be.